At exactly 13:47 hours on December 10, 2025, the Black Sea looked calm, almost innocent, but beneath that calm surface a quiet revolution in warfare was already unfolding. 7 Ukrainian UJ-26 Beaver drones emerged from the sea haze, flying so low that their shadows merged with the waves themselves, advancing toward the western coast of Crimea like ghosts that radar could barely perceive. Their destination was Kacha Air Base, north of Sevastopol, a facility that Russian military planners believed was wrapped in layers of invincibility. Parked on its tarmac was a Soviet-era Antonov An-26 transport aircraft, still vital for logistics and troop movement, still trusted, still valuable. The mission was not harassment, not symbolism, but erasure. Inside a Panzer S-1 air defense vehicle positioned along the coastal belt, the air was heavy with the smell of hot electronics, ozone from overworked circuits, and the sour tang of nervous sweat. The operators stared at glowing screens that suddenly refused to behave. 38 kilometers from the coast, the fire control radar began reporting 7 anomalies, but nothing about them fit known threat libraries. They were moving too slowly to be jets, too coherently to be birds, and yet their radar signatures flickered wildly, expanding and collapsing as if reality itself couldn't decide what they were. One moment they appeared as large as helicopters, the next they vanished completely. Speed indicators stubbornly hovered around 195 kilometers per hour, a speed that should have made target classification easy, yet the system hesitated. This was no malfunction. It was design. The drones were flying at just 15 meters above the sea, hiding inside the radar's blind zone. Their fuselages coated with ferrite-based material that absorbed X-band radar waves like black holes swallowing light. The Panzer's software, trained to ignore sea clutter, kept rejecting them as noise. The sergeant in charge leaned closer, squinting, manually attempting to force a lock, but the system pushed back, insisting that what he was seeing did not exist. In that moment, modern air defense met an enemy it was never emotionally prepared for. Something too small, too slow, too strange to justify panic, yet too deliberate to ignore. Then the illusion shifted. At 28 kilometers, 3 of the drones abruptly climbed, breaking the low-altitude stealth profile and ascending vertically to over 2,000 meters. At the apex of their climb, they deployed Lüneburg lenses, crude spherical reflectors that cost almost nothing but could amplify radar returns by orders of magnitude. On the Panzer's display, 3 insignificant drones transformed into what appeared to be massive strategic bombers plunging toward the base. Alarm screamed. The system's threat prioritization logic, rooted in decades of Soviet doctrine, immediately escalated the situation. Bigger threat meant faster response. The automatic turrets slewed upward with mechanical violence. Inside the cabin, the operator didn't see drones anymore. He saw incoming bombers. He saw the nightmare scenario drilled into him during training. His rational mind shut down, replaced by instinct. His fingers slammed the launch button twice in rapid succession. The 30-ton vehicle shuddered as 257 times 10 to the power of 6 missiles erupted from their launch tubes, solid fuel boosters igniting instantly and hurling the projectiles toward the sky at Mach 3.8. Sonic shockwaves hammered the chassis, while a cloud of toxic exhaust temporarily blinded the vehicle's optical sensors. Now the engagement belonged entirely to mathematics. Millimeter wave radar tracked both missiles and targets, updating guidance commands thousands of times per second, weaving invisible threads of data through the air. 7 seconds later, the first missile detonated flawlessly. Its continuous rod warhead expanded outward in a hypersonic ring of tungsten fragments, a weapon designed to slice through the reinforced fuselage of combat aircraft. Against a plastic and carbon fiber drone, it was overkill bordering on absurdity. The decoy vanished in a flash. On the screen, the massive radar contact that had terrified the system simply disappeared. Target destroyed, the operator shouted, adrenaline burning his throat. For seconds later, the second missile obliterated the next decoy just as cleanly. Perfect interceptions. Perfect defense. Textbook execution. The operator finally exhaled, convinced that the base had been saved. What he didn't understand was that he had just burned nearly $200,000 in ammunition to destroy flying illusions, drones deliberately stripped of cameras and filled with extra fuel to exaggerate their signatures. Ukrainian planners had studied Panzer reaction cycles obsessively. They knew exactly how long the system needed to clear smoke, reset filters, and resume full sensitivity. For seconds after the radar recalibrated, new tracks emerged from the sea clutter just 12 kilometers away. These were the real drones. They were no longer flying in formation. They executed the scatter command, violently fanning out in different directions, forcing the defender to make impossible choices. One went north, one south, two drove straight toward the heart of the base. The operator's blood ran cold. The Panzer could technically track up to 20 targets, but it only had 2 fire channels. 20 eyes. 2 hands. For attackers from 3 angles. He grabbed the encrypted phone and shouted to the S-400 battery positioned on higher ground, demanding immediate target assignment. This was where 21st century warfare revealed its most humiliating weakness. Despite satellites, phased array radars, and autonomous weapons, critical coordination still depended on 2 humans yelling numbers over a static-filled voice line. As they argued whether track 247 matched track 091, precious seconds bled away. In drone warfare, seconds are lifetimes. The drones slipped through the seam between systems, exploiting the fact that the S-400 was designed to kill bombers at high altitude, and the Panzer was optimized for close, concentrated threats. The Buk M3 battery to the south, tired of waiting, fired independently. But physics intervened. The Buk's radar operates like a strobe light, illuminating one target, then switching to another. To guide missiles against multiple targets, it must constantly juggle illumination. Ukrainian drones exploited this by running simple random evasion scripts, making abrupt, meaningless changes in direction with no concern for efficiency or survival. The missiles flew blind between radar pulses, relying on prediction. Each time the radar returned, the drone was somewhere else. One missile exhausted its energy trying to correct and detonated harmlessly in empty sky. Another succeeded only because its target flew straight for 1 fatal second too long. 1 drone destroyed. 2 magazines depleted. 3 drones remained. 40 kilometers out, they entered the engagement envelope of the S-400 Triumph, Russia's crown jewel of air defense. The operators were calm, even bored. On their screens, the drones crawled along the coastal road like insects, moving too slowly to inspire fear. They no longer emitted radio signals or used GPS. They navigated visually, using cheap cameras to follow contrast patterns in the terrain like zombies with no awareness of danger. A 7-meter-long 48 N6 missile launched, costing over $2 million, a Titan meant to destroy nuclear bombers. But the S-400 made a fatal assumption rooted in arrogance. Its software was optimized for fast threats. Objects that moved too slowly between radar scans were filtered out as static. The Ukrainian drone advanced only a few meters per scan. The system decided it wasn't real. The missile went blind mid-flight, racing toward a target its own brain had erased from existence. It roared past and slammed into the sea, throwing up a water column 100 meters high. Another drone behind it was destroyed not by impact, but by the sheer violence of the hypersonic shockwave, its fragile structure ripped apart by compressed air moving like concrete. 2 drones remained. One climbed sharply, accelerating, presenting itself as an obvious target. The operator took the bait instinctively and fired again. The drone disintegrated instantly. The final An-26 did the opposite. It dove toward high-voltage power lines feeding the Sevastopol rail network, entering a corridor of electromagnetic chaos. The corona effect ionized the air around the cables, creating a wall of radar noise. Screens turned into snowstorms. The operator attempted a manual shot, guiding the missile by eye. It struck a power tower instead, plunging districts into darkness. But the drone slipped through. With digital defenses blind and missile racks empty, the last line of defense was a relic from the Cold War. A Zu-23-2 anti-aircraft gun. 2 conscripts swung the barrels manually, calculating deflection by instinct. Tracers filled the air, creating a wall of fire meant to tear helicopters apart. But the drone didn't fear, didn't maneuver intelligently, didn't care. It flew straight through the storm. Ammunition ran out. 3 kilometers from the runway, its AI-activated image recognition mode. Using data harvested from a careless social media post, it locked onto its target, an An-26 parked beside fuel trucks. At 13 hours 59 minutes and 2 seconds, the drone dived. Its thermobaric warhead detonated, vaporizing fuel and aluminum in a sphere of supersonic fire. When the smoke cleared, only a blackened tail remained. 12 minutes. Billions of dollars defeated by cheap drones, simple code, and human overconfidence. This was not an attack. It was a message. And the message was clear. The future of war does not belong to the strongest armor, but to the smartest mind behind the cheapest weapon.